We got a ton of Bulls news going on today. We got injury updates, trade rumors, clutch moments, and some tough truths to get through as Chicago Bulls. Josh Giddey is a little bit behind schedule. Zach Collins is way behind schedule. And Nikola Vucevic is back to saving games, but is going to save his trade value? We're going to talk about all that, plus the Bulls setting their asking price for Coby White. We'll get to all that and more right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. I want to start off with the injury updates that were provided before the game yesterday. We got injury updates on Josh Giddey and Zach Collins. As far as Josh Giddey, per Billy Donovan, this is going to be a big week for Josh Giddey, and that he will. They plan on starting to ramp him up this week, which puts him a little bit behind the initial 2-week timeline. The 2-week mark is actually today. The fact that he has not been reevaluated at all, and they're just planning to start ramping him up, probably means that he's probably going to be about a week behind schedule, right? Probably around there. Maybe looking to return on the court next week for the Chicago Bulls, which it's behind schedule, but it's not the worst case scenario, right? When we heard initially that that the medical staff wasn't happy with where Josh Giddey was, kind of felt like he was going to be a little more ways back from that evaluation period. But if he gets reevaluated this weekend, I don't think that that's necessarily too bad behind that. When you have a hamstring injury, 3 to 4 weeks is the timeline you're typically looking at for that. So if Josh Giddey gets reevaluated over the weekend, he said that this is a big week for him. So that probably means he's not coming back Friday or Sunday for the Chicago Bulls in either one of those games. So you're probably looking about Tuesday or Thursday next week against either the Clippers or the Minnesota Timberwolves. So that puts him, like I said, about exactly a week behind the initial 2-week timeline. Not the worst thing in the world, not the end of the world for Josh Giddey. The key is just getting him back on the court, getting him healthy for the Bulls, and then continue whatever you do at that point in time. So hopefully he makes his return back and he looks better right away than Coby White. Luckily, Josh Giddey's game isn't one that's built off athleticism or anything like that. It's built off his IQ and his ability to manipulate the defense, pass, those type of things. And Josh Giddey was our leading scorer. It still is per the statistics, but before he went down. So you need that production from Josh Giddey, and so that's going to be important for this Bulls team as well. So we'll see what happens there. But that's the injury update for Josh Giddey, which isn't too bad. It puts him a little bit behind schedule, like I said in the intro. But the one in Zach Collins is quite considerably behind schedule. So Billy Donovan said that Zach Collins will be in a walking boot for at least a couple more weeks. So that put the 10-day timeline was the initial there. We're already past the 10-day timeline. He should have been back per that original timeline. Now, the key thing is getting healthy. He was already dealing with a wrist injury. He was dealing with, a toe thing that it seemed like they couldn't quite figure out exactly what was going on there. Leaving him in a walking boot for a couple of more weeks. That means he can't be evaluated while he's on a walking boot. So, that's just how long he's going to have the boot on. He could get that off and they could find that there's still some inflammation or something in there to where, he's still not able to return right away. We need Zach Collins. Vuce had a big game last night, and we're going to talk a little bit about Vuce and Billy Donovan's comments on Nikola Vučević for sure. But I just think overall, you want Zach Collins out there, especially with his defense, his two-way ability. In some of the fourth quarters of those games, I'm of the mindset where I think Nikola Vučević just doesn't need to play fourth quarters anymore unless he's rolling. Last night, he deserved to play in the fourth quarter. 16 points in the fourth quarter for the Chicago Bulls, all that type of stuff. He deserved to play. But when you have those games, which are bound to happen, in which Nikola Vučević doesn't look that good, you kind of need Zach Collins to be able to step in there because of the defensive floor of Zach Collins. So, that's just my thought process. It sucks not having him out there, but we've gone through the majority of the season without Zach Collins. I mean, that's just the reality of it. We have been without Zach Collins more than we've been with him this season. And the Bulls are they'll find a way to weather the storm in that. I would like to see Lachlan Albrecht get a little bit more time. P. Will had a good night last night, but he's wildly inconsistent as well as P. Willie. So because of that, you may want to look at some other things. But we'll see what happens with Zach. I hope that he has a speedy recovery as possible. He's averaging almost 10 points and 6 rebounds on the season. And being that he's only played 10 games and 18 minutes per game, that's really good per minute production for Zach Collins. So, hopefully he's able to get back out there. He's able to perform right back at that level because we do need that performance from Zach Collins. But overall, that's the injury updates. Those are the ones that we've been waiting for. Julian Phillips is out as well, but it doesn't seem like it's an injury that's leaving Julian Phillips out. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know what's happening with Julian Phillips as far as why he's being held out of games, but it does say for a right wrist sprain. So, if maybe that's legitimate, we'll see. But overall, we'll see what ends up happening with this team. But you guys can let me know how you feel in the injuries, updates that we got down below. With that said, Vooch hit a game-winning shot yesterday, basically, right? It wasn't a last-second shot, but it was a game-winning shot. And he had a season-high 35 points. It was the best performance we've seen from Nikola Vučević for the entirety of the year. He was locked in. He was engaged. He was clutch, 16 points in the fourth quarter of that game. And he hit that game-winning shot with 4.1 seconds left. Billy Donovan said this about Nikola Vučević. He feels a deep responsibility to do his job, regardless of where he's at physically. Now, I'm not saying anybody's going to put him in harm's way, but if he's not feeling great, he's going to find a way to get himself ready to go play. I have such an admiration and respect. Nikola Vučević has played 38 games this season and is averaging 16.4 points, 9.3 rebounds, and he's just not playing good today. Like, Vooch was the hero last night. No doubt about it. Nikola Vučević was everything that we needed to be. He was clutch. He was everything that we needed to be down the stretch of the game. We don't win that game if it wasn't for Nikola Vučević. He's hit some big shots this season, some clutch shots this season. You think about the comeback win over the Philadelphia 76ers early in the season in November, where we won 114 to 111, right? That was Nikola Vučević hitting a big shot down the stretch. Then he hit another game-winning shot on November 19th. So Vooch has had his minutes this season, right? But if Vooch is the one carrying you to victory, you have to look at why the other players on the team aren't stepping up more. Listen, Vooch played great, and I don't want to take away from how Vooch played last night, and there are going to be games during the season where Vooch absolutely plays well. He's not at the point to where you're just going to see bad Vooch in every stretch of the imagination, but Vooch is having the worst season of his NBA career since he became a starter, right? And not just statistically, but in analytics and production and efficiency. Vucevic he's not been good this season. And I do worry that Billy Donovan's comments kind of paint and add towards what we heard from like Brett Siegel earlier in the week, that the Bulls could look to re-sign Nikola Vucević. To me, that's bad. You don't need to re-sign Nikola Vucević, man. Now I get it. Some people made the comment like, "Hey, well, Vooch is our backup big. That's a solid backup big," and I'm not even going to fight on that. I'm going to be clear. I'm not going to fight on that. And I do see a world in which maybe Vooch does test the free agent market, finds that the market is not kind to him, kind of like DeMar DeRozan did twice, right? Like, keep that in mind. Before we signed DeMar DeRozan, it was all quiet on the DeMar DeRozan front. Then we don't re-sign DeMar, and he finds it quiet on the free agent front again. Eventually, we have to complete a sign and trade to help him go to the Sacramento Kings, right? So I do think that could be what the ultimate angle is here, right? Is that the Bulls could be open to re-signing Vooch on a very team-friendly contract. He may have to go out in the market and find out that it's not friendly for him, or if he does, because I don't know if a team's going to want to use their mid-level exception to sign Nikola Vucevic. Maybe the Bulls didn't help facilitate a sign and trade and can get something back. But if the Bulls ultimately re-sign Vooch, you better damn well have either traded for or you drafted the center of the future, because Vooch is on his way down. The efficiency is way down. The portability is way down. The defense, which has always been down, is even down, right? So everything right now is not looking good for Nikola Vucevic. He's just not the efficient player. He's going to have some good games. Make no mistake about it. I think Vooch is strung together like two, maybe three really good games in a row, and I'll give him credit for that. He's not at the point where he's completely washed, right? But he's at the point now where he's not always effective, and he's more often he's not effective than what he is effective. And efficiency, listen, the efficiency is in the toilet. Just being real for Nikola Vucevic. So that's what the Bulls have to weigh, right? And I do worry, like, the comments, like, because I know this front office does weigh very heavily the person, right? The person side of it. And to a degree, that's not necessarily bad, but sometimes you do have to make tough decisions on your roster, and a guy that's good, that's a good guy, overall good human. You have to make the decision to not have them on the court. Vuce has had a negative point differential every year of his NBA career. The last time he had a positive point differential when he was on the court was the 2019-20 season. That's it. That's it. That's literally it. Since then, he's been negative every single year. Now, I'm not putting that all on Nikola Vucevic. Some of that's lineup, some of that's rotation, some of that's stuff like that. But for a player that we already know is not going to be a plus defender, to now have that be a thing that's gotten worse over the year. As of right now in the season, Vuce has a negative point differential of negative 5.2. He has expected wins added of negative 12, which is, again, the lowest mark of his NBA career. So these comments from Billy Donovan, I just don't hope signal that the way that this organization views Vuce, and then that could lead Vuce to being re-signed by this team. But again, shout out to him for having a good night last night. We don't win that game without him, and I guess we just got to see. But moving on from that, I want to talk about Coby White, right? Coby White was bad last night. I'm not talking about the game last night. But we came out yesterday from Brett Siegel what the Bulls' asking price is for Coby White, right? We've heard earlier in the season that they're more open than ever to trading, to listening to offers for Coby White, but they're not actively shopping Coby. This is where I need my Bulls fans to separate the rumors from the reality. What we're hearing is that they're listening to offers. They're not necessarily shopping shopping Coby White. But what we're hearing also now from Brett Siegel is that the Bulls want a unprotected first-round pick back for Coby White if they're going to trade him. And I do think that, especially because you're looking at probably playoff caliber teams are looking to add Coby, right? We've heard the Minnesota Timberwolves as being one, the Clippers, which we have a rumor for. We're going to talk about that in a second. But most teams that we've heard are playoff caliber teams or teams that are trying to be that. The Atlanta Hawks included. So a unprotected first-round pick just makes the most sense because those teams are, their draft picks are going to be lower. Now, if you find a team that isn't necessarily a playoff team, that is maybe a younger team or something like that, that is interested in Coby White, it may be hard to find an unprotected first-round pick back in that case for Coby. But the Bulls are right to set the asking price for that. Set the asking price high because, again, as I've said before, it doesn't seem like the Bulls want to trade Coby White. They just may realize that now may be the time to strike on that. But the asking price reportedly is an unprotected first-round pick back for Coby White, which, like I said, it makes some sense for the Bulls to require at least that. But with that said, we also got a trade rumor for the Los Angeles Clippers in regards to Coby White. Now, this is something that we've heard before. We've heard that the Clippers could be interested in Coby before. This is not the first time that we've heard that. Brett Siegel did note that he is guarding some notice around the league as far as a young shot creator, a ball handler, those type of things. But the rumored offer that the Clippers could make for Coby White doesn't make any sense to me. Bogdanovich and 4 second-round picks. Listen, I'm not taking that trade at all. And I know some Bulls fans are going to say, well, we just got to get Coby off this team. That's not how you improve anything. And, I get it that, like, Bogdan is not necessarily a horrible player at all. But, again, at the same time, I just don't know if I'm at the place where even 4 second-round picks makes sense for a player like Coby who can go out and get you 20. Now, he's injured this season, and I do think it's going to affect his trade value. It also could affect his value in the free agent market, which, teams could look at and say, hey, Coby's not having the best season. Maybe we can trade for him and then still sign him for a little bit less. The Bulls also could be looking at that as well. But I think when you look at this team, like, I don't think you're at the place where you could trade a player like Coby and get 4 second-round picks back. Now, stacking assets is never bad. But 4 second-round picks for a player like Coby, I don't know if I like that. And on top of Bogdanovich is already injured. I think he's only averaging 8 points per game this season. He's played 16 games. Not to say that Coby White's played a lot more than that, but I just don't think that that's really the value. Especially if reportedly the value that the Bulls are asking for is an unprotected first-round pick. Bogdanovich at 33 years old and 4 second-round picks, especially with how this Bulls team does not value second-round picks, it doesn't seem right to me. Now, another team that is rumored as being interested, this one comes from Jake Fischer, is still the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, that is one that could very well be there. Now, reportedly, the Timberwolves are not interested in high-salary players, which Coby White would fit that for now. $12.9 million contract is not a big contract to try to match. You do have to try to sign him in the offseason, and the Wolves could basically use this as a trial period to say, hey, how do you fit next to Anthony Edwards? And then we could try to figure that out, right? Now, reportedly, with them, being kind of out on the Ja Morant market, if that does not materialize for them, they could pivot to Coby White, and he does have some realistic value for that. Now, reportedly, this is the new part of the update because we've already talked about what we want back, which is Juan Behringer. Reportedly, they are willing to move Rob Dillingham in a move for Coby White. Now, Dillingham does have the potential of being a 3-level scorer, but we have not seen enough of that to where it's worth it, so to say. Now, I mean, this is a guy that was a pretty high up pick. So, the potential's still there, and we've seen players like the situation that Dillingham is in that are drafted to winning teams that don't kind of fit in with the mold, that the team doesn't really have time to kind of slow down and focus on their development, and thus they kind of get lost behind the circle at that point in time. Now, if you ask a lot of Bulls fans, they're going to say, hey, no, we want Terrence Shannon Jr., and I don't blame you for that. On top of Rob Dillingham being only 6'2" and 175 pounds, that the players of that stature that are scorers usually find a hard route to go with it in the NBA, especially if they're not uber athletic, right? But this is a guy that was drafted 8th overall, and I could see AK saying, well, we basically got a lottery pick back for Coby White. I can completely say them selling it on that one, but I just don't know if that's the value for it, right? Keep in mind, Dillingham was 164 pounds in the draft. Now, he's put on weight and got up to 172, but it's former top 10 pick, but it's a little bit of a stretch there, I would say, if that fits really what the Bulls want. Now, if you throw in some other things, we could see, right? But I just don't know. I don't know. Now, maybe Rob Dillingham ends up being your backup point guard. Maybe you trade Trey Jones in a different situation. Maybe Rob Dillingham, you develop him as your backup, whatever. I don't know there. There is talent there with Rob Dillingham. I just don't know if the Bulls are at the position or with the makeup of this team, if it makes the most sense for Rob Dillingham on the team. Juan Behringer makes the most sense for the Bulls. I don't know if the Timberwolves are willing to give that up. Terrence Shannon Jr. makes a little bit of sense too, even though he's an older rookie. I think he may be the older second-year player. I think he may be the same age as Coby White. So you have some questions there, but I think overall, like, the Bulls just have to weigh this option in. I think they're going to go into this trade deadline, not necessarily with the mindset that let's just trade Coby by any means necessary, but with the mindset of let's evaluate the trade market and see what that really means for us. And I guess we'll see what's going to happen there. But let me know what you guys think on that down below as far as all the Coby White updates we just gave. The Bulls wanting an unprotected first-round pick. The Clippers being a team that could become interested, but they want to get 4 second-round picks. And then the Minnesota Timberwolves, which if they don't land a bigger player at the 1, they could go after Coby White. Let me know what you guys think on that down below. With that said, I want to get into this last topic. This one is from Jake Fischer. And just because I've seen a lot of Bulls fans, anytime trade stuff comes up, they immediately go to, why are we looking to trade this player? Let's trade Patrick Williams. Well, Jake Fischer was actually asked about that. And I think his words, and because they're not just coming from me, hopefully they resonate a little bit more with some of y'all that are stubborn, right? Jake Fischer was asked, have the Lakers looked into trading for Patrick Williams or Ayo Dosunmu? And Fischer said this, I know the Lakers are looking all across the market. I would be absolutely shocked if they wanted to go at Patrick Williams and take on his 4 years left at $18 million average value. I think they're probably looking at much more flexibility. He then went on to later on say this, Pat Williams does not have positive value around the league. I don't think any team is actively seeking him out. And I say that just because I think Bulls fans need a wake-up call. You don't go into a trade deadline, even though, I've told y'all, I don't want to see the Bulls trade Coby White. I understand that they could, and maybe there are deals out there that they can't pass up to get that done. But for every Bulls fan that responds anytime a trade rumor comes up and they're like, why are we looking to trade this good player? Let's trade Patrick Williams. Do you not want anything back? Like, because you're going to have to give up a first-round pick at this point to move off of Coby White. To move off of Patrick Williams in a deal. That's just the reality of it. So I need everybody to get their head out their, well, not everybody, but the people that say that repeatedly, get their head out their ass and realize nobody wants Patrick Williams. Now, he had a good night last night, and I give him tons of credit for that. He performed well last night. And I would go on to say that maybe he should have been out there in the fourth quarter of that game over Coby White with the way that Coby White was hurting the Bulls with turnovers. But generally around the league, Patrick Williams does not have good value. There's nobody that's checking for Patrick Williams. Matter of fact, if the Bulls try to call most teams and be like, hey, we got P. Will for you, they probably would hang up right away in the Chicago Bulls' faces, say fuck them and they mama, and never talk to the Bulls again. Patrick Williams is averaging 6.5 points per game, playing 18 minutes per game in 38 games played so far this season. Nobody wants Patrick Williams. He's shooting 37% from the field. Nobody wants Patrick Williams. So for my Bulls fans that do want to see the Bulls make a trade, Patrick Williams is not the one that you should be calling, screaming, and crying about that the Bulls aren't trying to trade, because guess what? They would have to actively give up assets to make that happen, to move P. Will. And that's not the position that the Bulls are in right now. Now, maybe if it's a larger deal, and maybe if the Bulls are willing to take back some bad salary in a larger kind of 3-team trade, maybe you can get somebody to take that. But even then, the chances are very slim, because P. Will is the bad salary in most trades. So it's probably not going to happen. But this goes to show, again, that the Bulls, in giving P. Will that deal of $18 million, it was bad. It was a bad deal then. It's a worse deal now, and it's probably going to keep getting worse. But the one thing is that when this Bulls team is fully healthy, P. Will wasn't playing a lot of minutes. That brief stretch, that 5-2 stretch that we had when we were actually fully healthy, the Patrick Williams wasn't playing much. And that's the one thing that you can rest on, is that once everybody's back healthy, whenever that happens, P. Will is not going to be getting minutes for this Bulls team. And that is the right decision to be made. So I'll take that over anything else. But you guys can let me know how you feel on everything down below. But that's going to do it for today's episode, man. Let me know what you guys think down below. Should the Bulls move Coby White now in any of the deals that we heard? Is the unprotected first-round pick asked back? Is that fair? Should the Bulls even consider re-signing Nikola Vucevic? And what would you do, realistically, with Patrick Williams? Make sure you guys like the channel, subscribe to it. Well, like the video, subscribe to the channel as well. Turn on notifications if you never want to miss an episode or live stream. Make sure you guys, as always, follow us at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, stay safe, go Bulls, and always see red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.